Hello, Blue Wallis here. Welcome back to another video. Today, this title is not a lie. Do you have a use for this device? This was something that I created as an idea, and I thought it was gonna be good, but then I can't think of any use cases for it. Maybe sound design. So I'm going to show you what it is, then I'm going to show you how to make it, and then it's up to you to let me know how we can use this device. So this is known as a 3-band ADSR. I tried making a Max for Live version of this. This is the Ableton stock version because the Max for Live one just was not working as intended. So we're going to learn how to build this. I'm going to give you a demonstration and then we'll get into it. So the way that this works is you have a low pass and a high pass for the 3 bands. So we're going to separate one sample into 3 bands, and then we can specifically change the attack, decay, sustain, and release of these 3 sections to become whatever we think it should become. So you can see we have the high section, the mid section, and the low section within the 2. Currently I have a piano note in here, and if we listen to this, you'll hopefully hear all of the mids are being dipped out. So I can probably... And then what you will also be hearing is that the low notes are actually coming in slightly more. So you can hear those frequencies coming in a little bit more. You can't really hear the high, so don't worry too much for this one. But again, this is 3 bands, so that whatever sample you're putting into it, you can manipulate and affect however you would like. So let's get on to building this. To start, let's create a new MIDI track. I'm just going to delete these because these are my autos. And what you're going to want is you want to grab the simpler. Now, simpler is different to the sampler. And what we want is we want to be able to easily just grab these for our macros, and so that's why we're going to be using the simpler. What I'm going to do, I'm going to grab the piano note that I was using in the previous one, just so that I can then have something that we can hear straight away. And then the other thing that we're going to want to grab is an EQ8. So that is pretty much the device. That's all we really need. So what we're going to do, we're going to group these. And then what we're going to do, we're going to have a look at these chains. And what we're going to do, let's call this one the high chain. Let's duplicate that with Command D or Control D. And then I'm renaming with Control R, Command R. We're going to call this the mid chain. And then the final one, let's call it the low chain. So we've got 3 chains, all have the piano that's going to be louder because it's going to play all 3 of them at once. And then we've got the EQs on them as well. So I'm just going to hide the piano in here for now, because what we're going to do, we're going to look at the EQ. I'm going to start with the EQ. So if we click here, we have the macro button. We're going to need a total of 14 macros. So we're going to need 4 for each of the attack, decay, sustain releases for the chains, and then 2 for the high and low passes. So we're going to add 14 here. And I'm going to build this slightly differently, just so that maybe it's a little bit easier for you to see what the controls are. I'm going to put my high and low on these 2 here. So the first thing, let's work on this high chain. I'm going to remove these and let's add the high pass. We're going to keep the Q more or less there, and then we're going to take the frequency and let's map this to macro 7. And then let's call this the high band. So everything higher than this will be the high band. Then let's go to the low chain. Again, we'll get rid of these. We're going to use the other one. And then let's map this to macro 14 so we can have then the low band. So this is great. We now have a high and a low. However, the mid chain still isn't doing anything. So let's grab this, and then let's grab these two. And what we need to do is we need to inverse these values. So typically for 1, which is our the same one that we're using for our high chain, we actually need to map it to the low chain's parameters. We want these to invert on each other. And I just realized for this one, we want to turn this to a ×4 parametric. Now you possibly could do this with phase inverting and just cleaning up the signal using a utility and phase inverting them. This is just a really simple way of doing this. What we're going to do, we're going to take number 1 and we're going to map this to our low band. So now we can see that that is going to be the low band section and then the mid band. And then we're going to take number 8 and map this to our high band. And again, we want to put this to parametric 4 just so that there's a bit more of a smoother transition there. So again, we can now see that all the bands are working. Now we shouldn't necessarily, there may be some slight artifacting, but now we should hear just one note, all 3 bands. Fabulous. So now we can hear that. Now the next thing is going through and doing the attack, decay, sustain releases. So let's start with the high chain first. And all we're going to be mapping is the attack, decay, sustain, and release. So I'm going to map this to macro 1, map this to macro 2. What I'm going to do is I'm going to map this to 8 and then 9. And then if we look at these macros, we can see them all here. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to color them red. So I know that these are the high ones. And what you could also do is you could also come in here, again, Command R, and then we could put in HI, just so that we know it's the high one. So now we know that this is the attack of the high one. And what we'll see is that it maps to there as well. So here is all 4 of them renamed. And here are these 2 also colored, just so that it's easier for us to distinguish between them all. Now let's go to the mid chain and do the same thing, and then we'll do the same for the low as well. Okay, so now we have all of them mapped, and I've also colored the chains just so it's a little easier for you to see which chain is doing what. So we still have our piano. Sounds kind of boring. So this is where we can then change the attack, decay, sustain, and release of this piano. So now let's play around with this device. What we're going to do, I've set it so everything is quiet, so that everything just immediately cuts out, so we can't hear anything. So now let's make it so that the low note comes through and it filters through. So what we're going to want is we're going to want to affect this low section. We're going to want the sustain to be more or less the same as it is. And what we want is we want the attack to be around 500 milliseconds. So what this is going to do is it's going to take 5 milliseconds for the sound to get to the top of the attack envelope. It's then going to do the decay, which takes it down to the sustain level, which is going to be more or less instantaneously, 1 millisecond. And then the release is how long it takes to outcome. Let's put it to 50 just for now. So now if we press this note, we can hear that it comes in at that point. If we increase the low band, we'll hear more of that low coming in. It's starting to sound like a real piano now. But again, it's coming through this filter. Say we wanted the low to not come in at all, and we want the mids to come in after the highs. So we want the highs to come in first. So let's increase the highs and decrease the lows. The attack of the highs we're going to make more or less instant, and then we want the mids attack to maybe take quarter of a second, so around 250 milliseconds. We want the sustain again to be as max on that as well. So now let's hear what this sounds like. Bit different, a bit more like a piano note than what we previously did, but again, has a bit of artifacting to it. Now let's try something even a little bit more weirder with the decay. So the attack takes it to the highest level. So let's really put this at maybe 400 mil. What we're going to do, we're going to say that it takes around 200 mils to then decay back to 0. So this will increase over 400 milliseconds till it reaches the top of the sound, 0 dBs, and then it will take 200 milliseconds to decrease to 0. So it should go up and then down fairly quickly, whilst the highs stay more or less there present at the same time. What I'm going to do, I'm going to decrease the highs to 1000 just so that we can hear them a bit more. I'm going to increase the low just a bit more so that we can really, I'm going to decrease it just so that we can hear it a bit more. So it's more the sub that we're getting rid of the piano from the low attack, decay, sustain, release. So we'll hear the mids, they'll disappear, and then we should hear the highs constantly. So there you go. A bit more of a strange high-end piano, but you can hear those mids coming in and dipping out more or less straight away. Again, we could play with this. We could say that it takes longer for the mids to decrease. So here we have 4 seconds. So now the highs are going to stay there, and then this is going to just slowly decrease in volume. And then we're almost left with the harmonics ringing out through the air. But we could also then change this so that the attack does something similar. So if we make it so that the attack of the low comes in, and we're going to put it to the max sustain, we'll have the lows come in if they're still there. Probably not, but let's give it a listen. Yeah, the lows aren't there. So we can't really use this sound to explore this, but that's why I'm giving it over to you. You now know how to make this device. You can put whatever samples you want into each 3 of these samplers and create your own sounds. You can even use a different sound in one of these, or change the parameters within the sampler to give you even more complexity. This device has its limits, but those limits have not been found by me. They're up to you to find. You can either build this or get this one, which has been saved in the description. So feel free to play around with it. Let me know if you come up with anything cool. And until next time, this has been Blue Wallis, and I'll see you later. Also, just one final thing. Don't forget to save this. So you can just click here, click save, and then name it however you want. We can use the same naming scheme that I did, which was the 3-band ADSR, attack, decay, sustain, release. And there you go. It's saved.